Hey fourth graders, happy Thursday. It's Miss DeMonico. I just want to show you a little bit of modeled writing and kind of show you what it is that I expect that you do with these written responses for today's reading tasks. So I've been working on Yellowstone National Park. Today you guys are going to be doing Yosemite. And your exit ticket today, fourth graders, is explain using details from the text something you learned from the text. This is really kind of a good one because you can really just choose anything, something that you learned, but you have to be able to explain it. So I'm going to focus on two things today while I am writing my response. The first thing I'm going to focus on is restating the question in my writing. So that way they're just it's kind of like a way of orienting the reader, but instead of a sequential set, it is orienting the reader to what you're writing about in a reading response. The other thing I'm going to focus on, fourth graders, is we have to be very careful when we're using details from the text in our writing to not copy, okay? No copy. Everybody say that? Good. When you are using details from the text, it's so important that we do what's called paraphrasing. And I'm going to write that word up here, paraphrase. Paraphrasing is so important because you're not copying the text, but you're taking what the text says and what you learned from it, and you're restating it in your own words, okay? You are saying it again or restating it in your own words. Why is paraphrasing so important? Well, paraphrasing, fourth graders, shows that you read something and you understood what you read, and now you can teach somebody else about it. If you're just copying and pasting sentences from the text, you're not really showing the reader, hey, not only did I read this and I was, learned something, but I can actually explain it and teach it to somebody else. Explaining is a much more challenging skill than you might think. So the first thing I'm going to do in my response is the thing that I wanted to teach the reader about, explain to them something I learned, is about the geysers at Yellowstone. I just found that so fascinating as I was reading the text. So through writing, I'm going to teach somebody else and explain to them what I learned. Explain using details from the text something you learned from the text, I should always indent every time I'm starting a new paragraph. So I'm going to go ahead and indent, which is just a big old finger space. One thing I learned from the text is what a geyser is and what you might see at a geyser in proper nouns. I'm going to capitalize here, Yellowstone. Period. Now, I've gone ahead and I've restated it. I told the reader one thing I learned from the text is, and then I told them what it is that I'm going to explain to them. I'm going to explain to them that keyword right there is geyser. But I'm not just going to say, I learned what a geyser. Well, what about a geyser did you learn? Well, I learned what I might see at a geyser, and I know what it is now because I didn't know what a geyser was before I read the text. But I can't stop there, fourth graders. I have to treat the reader like they're stupid. And I have to explain to them what it is I learned. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what a geyser is. A geyser, and I capitalized that A because it's the first letter in my new sentence, is a hot underground spring that forms in the cracks of the magma at the tops of volcanoes. So I'm telling you what it is. It's a hot underground spring. I'm telling you where it forms, where you would find them located. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them right here. A geyser, you know what, I started to spell that wrong, but you know, erasing is a waste of time, so I'm just gonna cross it out and keep moving. A geyser shoots water into the air, comma, sometimes 200 to 300 feet high. And I think that's exciting, so I'm gonna put an exclamation point at the end of that sentence, because that's a really high way to shoot some water. Now I know what a geyser is, and I'm going to explain to the reader what they might see at a geyser. Well, I know they're going to see this, but what else could they see? There are over 250 geysers at Yellowstone. One of the most famous geysers is Old Faithful. And I'm capitalizing that again, fourth graders, because it is that's exactly right. It is a proper noun. Good job. One of the most famous geysers is Old Faithful, which erupts every 60 to 90, I don't like the way that I wrote that, 60 to 90 minutes. All right, now what I'm gonna do, fourth graders, I've restated my question in my first sentence to orient the reader, and I've also paraphrased. And I took a lot of those details in the beginning when I was reading the text. I was writing down details that I learned about something, which by topic was geysers, and I wrote down some details, and these are word for word. These are not word for word details from the text, fourth graders. No. I wrote down just keywords and phrases, just like we would do if we had a sequential set with our check marks and brackets. And then I took those details and then I paraphrased. I said it in my own words to explain to the reader what I learned from the text. So now the last thing I'm going to do before I sign off, fourth graders, is I'm going to go ahead and reread what I wrote, just to make sure that it sounds right and it makes sense. So here we go. One thing I learned from the text is what a geyser is and what you might see at a geyser in Yellowstone. A geyser is a hot underground spring that forms in the cracks of the magma at the tops of volcanoes. A geyser shoots water into the air, sometimes 200 to 300 feet high. There are over 250 geysers at Yellowstone. One of the most famous geysers is Old Faithful, which erupts every 60 to 90 minutes. All right, there you go, fourth graders. I'm looking forward to reading about what you learned from your text today about Yosemite. Bye, fourth graders. Talk to you later.